Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We are, of course, a Blue Wire podcast brought to you by Prize Picks. And joining me today on this Sunday afternoon for a live show is Fox 40, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
Oh, I'm splendid. There's Game 7 going on right now, but we'll have it on in the background, I guess, a little bit. It's kind of a lopsided game at the moment, yeah?
Yeah, it's a little strange, isn't it? Although, I don't know, the Knicks are beat up, so it kind of makes a little bit of sense, right?
Yeah.
Of course, joining Sean and I is Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
What's going on, guys? I'm doing well. Nothing special.
Nice. You guys have your podcast candles burning?
Not burning, but it can start here. My little fresh lavender breeze. Got a couple new clearance candles the other day.
You and your clearance candles.
Oh, yeah.
You and your clearance candles. Doggone it, Brenden.
Let's see. This has been a busy week. I don't know about you guys. I actually got to see Brenden the other night. It was kind of nice.
It's true.
You guys get to see each other in person? What?
At a work function.
Oh.
We could call it that. I just wanted to see Blake Snell pitch. Yeah, I really wasn't doing too much. You know.
All right.
We got to catch Snell. What, 10 strikeouts through 5 innings?
Yeah, that's right. And no hits. He hit a batter. He sailed one over to the backstop at one point, and that was kind of a funny story where he said he got with the pitch clock, and the catcher was calling a curveball or a fastball late, and he was going to throw a curveball, so he's like, I'll just throw it to the backstop, just waste the pitch, provide some entertainment.
Okay. Did he get hurt? I mean, that's always a problem, right? With Snell.
But he has to get back in a Giants uniform first for that to happen, because they're dropping like flies up in the big club. So
they're hitting now, though.
But they're hitting. Luis Matos has been fantastic. So
of course, the Oakland A's are on a big skid as well. I was watching earlier. They were down 8-4, and that was after a 3-run Brent Rooker home run. His 11th of the season. Let's just kind of lay this out. We're doing a live show. I don't know how many people are going to show up because it's a Sunday afternoon, and there is a pair of Game 7s on right now. It's halftime of the Knicks and Pacers game. This is a little surprising, although, let's be honest, Tom Thibodeau ran this team like he's Toonce's driving cat. Sean, you know that reference. Like he just ran this team right off a cliff. Well, just playing everybody 48 minutes a game until they broke. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
I get a little bit. So
it's playoffs, It's
playoffs.
It's part of the story. Everyone loves the success that the Knicks were having, and just like every team, some of these things kind of catch up with you a little bit, and the way the physicality is in the playoffs, guys are going to get hurt, and it's interesting to see some guys try to fight through it. Josh Hart, Anunoby at one point, but yeah, I mean, that's attrition and being healthy is part of the storyline. So,
I mean, still got a whole half left in this game,
right.
too. I think Indiana hardly missed any shots, and they could definitely slow down at a point here.
I also am loving the fact that, first of all, James drinking a beer while we're doing this is just great. But I'm loving the fact that Tyrese Halliburton is firing verbal jabs at the Knicks fans courtside has been pretty entertaining.
Ooh, that's fun. That's fun. Okay, so let's just let's dive into here a little bit. First and foremost, Boombox Benny, you were first. Hello. Salvador Fuentes is hi from Wisconsin. And DFW is in the house. Look at that. A little David Force Workman. That's right. We haven't seen you in a little while. I also like Angelo's here. Meg is here. Hi, Hector. Go Knicks. Wow. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of time left. I agree. I don't know. These playoffs have been intriguing, like unexpected. Like, I don't know. What is your guys' overall take on what we've seen so far with, a pair of Game 7s today, a really entertaining Game 6 yesterday where OKC was bounced from the playoffs by the Mavericks. But this thing is heating up pretty good. And I'm a little shocked by some of these, especially, the injuries catching up to the Knicks, but also just Denver not being able to get through Minnesota like we thought they might.
Yeah, I mean, I think we thought throughout the year that the West was pretty level, and I feel like that's kind of getting proven. I think there was a thought that Denver might be a tier above, and I kind of was in that thought process as well. And Minnesota's holding their own. Anthony Edwards is doing great. Karl Anthony Towns buying into the defensive end, obviously what Gobert does, and they have so much length on that team. But in the West, it really feels like it's kind of anybody that could take this. So maybe winner of Minnesota Denver, maybe they will prove to be above who comes out of this other series, but the West does kind of feel all in the same tier to me. And on the East side, it kind of feels like Boston against everybody. Like I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. I could see Boston losing 3 more games in this playoffs, really.
Sean?
I think they got locked up. I mean, I'm with you. Celtics have been my pick. I think they're best team I've seen in the playoffs. But I will say Denver, I mean, I know that the game hasn't started yet. It doesn't happen till later this evening, but as we record this, but Denver has kind of frightened me a little bit in games that you feel like they should go in there and put the best effort forward and probably win a game if you were trying to pick them, or if you go in them as a favorite. It's kind of like they have to have a back against the wall mentality for them to come out and have a give a damn to them. So certainly, coaching gets critiqued, and I know Draymond Green was very loud about the way Rudy Gobert and the Timberwolves were defending Jokic and how he could do a better job. And I know a lot of Kings fans, and even I mean, there were people who bristled at that. I actually don't think he's all that wrong. I think they did. I think that Minnesota did an awful job of trying to adjust. And leaving Rudy on an island to do everything himself has been pretty wild to see. So anyway, I don't know what people thought about those comments, but I kind of agreed with Draymond, even though he's going to obviously have the most confidence in his own ability. And yeah, he's sitting at home while these two teams go in the playoffs, but he's got experience against Jokic, and he's had good games and bad games against him. So interesting to see how people reacted to those comments. But I'm as much as I think that Denver is going to take care of business tonight, this is a game that kind of frightens me, because every time I've thought Denver would win this series, they lost.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. And I will say this, like, I don't think the world is ready to hear Draymond Green talk yet. Like he's going to sit there and run his mouth all day long on his podcast and stuff like that. But I'm not sure that like the mainstream, everybody out there who watches like these major shows is fully ready for him. And maybe I'm wrong. But I would also point out that the last time that Denver faced Golden State in the playoffs, Jokic busted his ass like a little bitch. I mean, he averaged 31 points, 13.2 rebounds, 5.8 assists, 1.6 steals, a block. Yeah, the Nuggets lost, but I would still say, like, look, I don't know why Draymond is out there yapping at this point. He's at home
because that's what he's
They're
paid to
still playing.
do on TNT.
Yeah.
He's literally doing a fucking job on TNT, and he's giving his analysis. That's called analysis.
He's given you a hot take, is what he's giving you. That's what he's giving you. Like I don't.
I actually kind of agree with him. I'm not talking about that Draymond necessarily would have done a better job, but I think his team would do a better job in reacting and adjusting through 3 games for sure.
Yeah.
I also think I don't know. I mean, that's kind of the spot to do it. I think that he's a good personality for that sort of role, personally. Also, the TNT, like, if this is the last we get of these TNT guys, I'm really trying to savor it, because these guys are classic. I don't know. I don't know. Like, you think they could go to another network? Is that what you're talking?
Yes, 100%.
But not Ernie, right?
Not Ernie. I mean, it's gonna end with him, but yeah. I mean, everybody else, it would be able to.
Yeah, it seems like that's what sort of the quiet murmur is, that those guys were in New York, maybe talking to somebody at NBC, maybe not talking to somebody at NBC. Plus, doesn't TNT still have the playoffs next year?
Yes,
I'm not sure. I don't know.
No, I think the television contract isn't for next year; it's for the year after.
Gotcha.
So I'm almost positive that those guys will be around for one more season together. So, and I think it'll be a good like send off season because I mean it's highly entertaining. They're a good group of dudes who just like to hang out and talk in a fun way for the most part. I mean, I think sometimes it gets a little off track, but that's why I think Draymond's coming in like trying to be a hot take guy. Like, okay,
Yeah, they're definitely about the entertainment. I'm not necessarily listening to them for their basketball takes, although there's some mixed in there. Can I ask you guys something real quick about this Lakers opening? If that's not too off topic, got the same division a little bit.
Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to start a podcast with LeBron, and I will probably be the head coach.
That's
next
exactly
season.
what I wanted to ask. How weird is this situation? How often, like, is there anything that you guys can compare it to? And how often do you see, or have you seen, former players step into these roles without really having prior experience? Like Vlade, in my mind, is an example, but obviously in a different role.
Didn't Mark Jackson do that? When he initially stepped in, I mean, he was right out of player. I don't think he was on a staff. I might have to go back in the bio a little bit, but I know Steve Kerr. I mean, he went right out of went into the front office. Was terrible wasn't terrible. I think history might treat him a little bit more kindly than he was. It wasn't a great in the moment. Certainly things that had happened there, but I think history might have treated him a little bit more kindly. But certainly a much better job as he stepped into the head coaching role. But no, I mean, this is pretty par for the course. I mean, it's always you're hearing names that are going to get thrown about, and I know you're talking about JJ Redick here, but in addition to that, like LeBron is going to be ever present for every team that he's on, and whatever coach they're going for, he's going to be heavily involved in it. It's why I always say, like, at this point, he's already a player coach as it is. Why not just make him one? Just have him be the head coach. No one's going to be smarter than him in the moment. He's already, I know he's still a superstar in the league and rightfully so, but might as well just put him on and let him just do both and get him somebody as a phenomenal lead assistant and take it from there.
I'm with Sean. Let's just also, since he makes all the personnel decisions, let's just make him the GM, the coach, and the star at the same time. Because I think it works. I do. Like, no, it doesn't work. I think, like, look, there have been guys who go straight from either the NBA to a head coaching position or from the booth to a head coaching position. I mean, Chauncey Billups had a little bit of assistant coaching experience. Steve Nash bounced around like as a development coach and like some other like front office jobs before he took the job with Brooklyn. Like I don't know. This seems so random because I don't know that up until this point that JJ Redick had head coaching aspirations, and he certainly wasn't going down that path. So to me, it's very strange. And like, look, what are you going to do when he's gone? What are you going to do when LeBron's gone? So like that's not going to be,
they should already be preparing for that.
Yeah, you got 2, maybe 3 years at the most. And even that's going to be at like age 40, 41, 42, maybe 43. Like that's crazy. And you're just letting him kind of do his thing forever. I mean, they're like, look, people are bringing up different names in the chat. There is a ton of coaches that like were former players, but to have somebody who isn't anywhere near the coaching realm or in a front office doing any basketball related things except for talking on it, like talking about it on TV or on a podcast. I don't know that there's a lot of guys that just make this type of transition. So
also, if you're JJ Redick, I realize coaching the Lakers is that's a thing like that has some gravitas towards it, even if you're coaching with LeBron, all this stuff. But I feel like he's kind of at a peak right now, like in what he's doing, and is a superstar in the field of media as it is. So why it's kind of like, where Mark Jackson, whereas, he was kind of like the John Gruden in a way in the NFL, and from a broadcast coach standpoint, take away the off the court and off the field stuff for both of those gentlemen. But like in talking about him getting back into coaching again, it's like you had at the point a great gig that is very difficult to leave as the lead analyst for ABC. He's no longer there. JJ Redick is. If you're JJ Redick, why would you leave that?
Yeah. You make a lot of money and you're not getting fired in 2 years when everything goes horribly wrong. I've got a dog barking. Hopefully that's not too loud. Out. Somebody did. Somebody let the dogs out. I think it's the wife. I don't know. Okay, so let's just get to a little bit of business. If you're watching here on YouTube and you don't mind, give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, do all of that good stuff. Sometimes when I give the thumbs up, it makes a little bubble, but
I'm glad it didn't work because it makes me jealous that I can't. I don't understand why it doesn't work for us.
Might need to try some other things, see what else works.
Yeah. Oh. Now I think I figured it out.
You gave it the
double. Anyway, yeah, there's some like it kind of brings us to the King situation. William Lamas here in Yamas here. Speaking of coaches / contract, if Brown starts out bad next season, it could get ugly pretty quick. Wait on his extension. I'm going to take a completely opposite point of view on this, William. You're talking about a phenomenal head coach who has a 607 career win percentage, who just led you to the playoffs for the first time in 16 seasons, who in the 39 years in Sacramento, they have exactly 10 seasons over 500. 8 of those are Rick Adelman. 2 of them are Mike Brown. I don't know why you would want to upset the apple cart here, but I also like we've been here before, and that's the most frustrating thing, because if this doesn't get done, if there isn't an extension in place and Mike Brown goes into this season as a lame duck, I kind of fear that Vivek could go full Michael Malone here again and just prove that he hasn't learned anything. And that's something that as somebody who has watched this team go through so many years of struggles is slightly concerning to me. Am I off base with this?
My take on it is this. You've got about 3 or 4 people that represent all the head coaches in the league. If you hope to do business with those head coaches, you've got to make him, you have to extend him. You have to make him, from a business standpoint, you have to reward what's happened. Now, granted, they didn't make the playoffs this past year, but you're talking about 2 games difference from the year before when he was a coach of the year. And even if you want to fire him next year or the year after, whatever, that should never change. Like, you can still be as harsh and as critical and as hold your coach's feet to the flame as much as you want, but you have to make it right from a business standpoint, because anybody you go out and replace Mike Brown with is going to command the same dollar figure right now, because that's what coaches are getting paid. So in my opinion, you've already paid coaches not to coach in the past. That shows that you're not cheap. That shows that you care about winning. And yes, you've made some, as James points out with the Mike Malone situation, you made some mistakes in the past, but you have to do the right business move, bite the bullet, figure out whatever that extension might be to get you through the next few years. And I would argue that Mike Brown is still the right head coach for this team. But if you're Vivek Ranadive, if you're Monty McNair, if you're that front office and you have any inkling that he's not, then you cut him loose right now. This is the time to do that if you don't have an extension in mind, in my opinion, because that to me makes the most business sense. But make no mistake, whoever they go and hire to replace Mike Brown is going to make the type of money that Mike Brown is essentially commanding. So they have probably some dollars and cents to figure out, but in my opinion, you have to do the right business move.
He should be the guy. I don't think at this current point there's anything else that he needs to prove. Like, sure, as the years go on, yes, some rotational stuff. I get the frustration with that. I would point more towards the roster itself. Like, I think that Mike has come in and tried to establish this culture from the year he got here. And I think that we've seen that slowly be built, and that can get torn down really quickly. It takes time, I think, to maintain that, for that culture to really be a part of your system. And I think that the Kings are starting to get there. You can tell they're early in the process. Like, I think of Harrison Barnes' comments in the exit interview talking about how, at least, we're not switching up the front office coaching staff. Like, there's some consistency here. And I don't think Mike has anything left to prove. I would, wouldn't be surprised if Vivek still felt like he wanted to see more. But I personally think that everything that he's done up to this point has been extremely beneficial for the team, for the city, and really all around. And I think I said this before, but I would worry that, if this didn't get worked out, that what could that mean? Is there another domino to fall after the fact? How is some of these guys on the team going to feel that now there's even more turnover, for example? And the one other thing is I've seen some people say, like, what's the harm in waiting? Wait and see. I think going through this year and having that hanging over the team would be a whole thing within itself. And you don't want, do you want De'Aaron Fox sitting there wondering, like, is this guy going to be around next year? I don't think they need that hanging over the team this season.
Well, you want to show that the organization supports the coach, and you become a little, your message isn't as strong, your voice isn't as loud to your players if you don't have the support of the organization.
Yeah, I would also say that you want to prove to your players and your fan base that you're smart enough to not make the same exact mistake again. And that's the problem, like, for me, because let's just rewind to what happened when Michael Malone was fired. First and foremost, we hear this line all the time from Rudy Gay. And we hear this line because George Karl decided to put a line in a book that Rudy Gay said to him when he took over the Sacramento Kings as head coach midway through the 2014-15 season. He said, "Welcome to basketball hell." And I don't know if you guys saw it, but Rudy Gay explained on the Carmelo Anthony podcast the other day what he meant by that. And it's very specific. What he meant was he had just signed a contract. He said 2 days before. It was like a month before. But in basketball time, that's fine. That's 2 days. He just signed a contract extension to play for Michael Malone, with the understanding that Michael Malone was going to be the head coach and that they were building something. And then they fire the guy for no reason, actually for just the worst reasons. And it's because they couldn't control their own egos on the back end. And that was a problem, right? So why would I just got to say it right now. If you're Malik Monk and they're not going to show you that they're serious about winning, that they're serious about basketball, that they're not morons, then why would you possibly sign here as a free agent? Like, really? If you're Malik Monk and you think, they're not smart enough to give Mike Brown a contract, and then that means that 20, 30 games, if we're not killing it, he could get fired. Like, why would I possibly sign up for a dysfunctional, pathetic, like, BS once more again Sacramento Kings? Like, why would you do it? And that's the thing that I think people who are like, oh, we should just wait. Well, you don't wait. You don't let a guy who's got, again, like, he's got a higher win percentage of Mike Budenholzer, who just got a 5-year, $50 million deal to coach the Phoenix Suns. He just won Coach of the Year for you a year ago. Like, what exactly are we doing here? And that's where I'm at, where I just don't understand the perpetual cycle of ineptitude and incompetence. That's what I don't understand.
What's the typical timeline here of, like, when this could get done? At any point now, right?
I mean, you want to get it done early, in my opinion, before you go into free agency. I would hope, but if it were me, but I mean, there's no real rush. And Mike Brown spoke to it as well. Yeah, Monty McNair talked about the conversations, starting rather quickly, and but at the same time, you can table it and get into the start of training camp right before training camp really officially starts, and maybe get it done out of the way at that point, because obviously that front office has a draft to prepare for. They have all the offseason distractions, summer league, all that kind of stuff as well. So you get into maybe August, everyone's away and on vacation, whatever. So there's really no rush, but I feel like if I'm putting myself in either one of those gentlemen's shoes, it would be something to kind of have meetings very quickly about, and it was something I'd expect to be done. I didn't think we'd get into May 19th and not have it done yet. But again, there's really no real rush until you get right to training camp.
Yeah, I think the timeline is you don't want to walk into the regular season with this being something that's hanging over your head. And for that matter, if I'm the players that they're going to be negotiating with, I want to make sure I know who's going to be the coach. And I want to make sure because this team, this franchise has bungled it so many times. Like, I want to know. Like, again, if I'm Malik Monk, I'm not signing here if I don't know. I mean, yeah, the timeline can be August, it can be September, whatever. They can take care of it afterwards, but there still has to be an understanding sort of in place that this is who's going to be coaching the team, and sort of this is the process they're doing, because you can't preach continuity for one season and quote unquote run it back, and then clearly that didn't work, and you knew it didn't work in December, it didn't work in January, wasn't working in February, and you've refused to make any moves to make the roster better at all. You didn't do anything to help. And then you question why it is that your team wasn't good enough. And I'm not sure, like, who exactly outside of, like, I think Monty McNair and Wes Wilcox they're good basketball minds. But whoever else is like putting input in here, like, it's a little squirrely. Like, this team wasn't a NBA championship contender. And I know they talked about it early in the season, but like, it just wasn't. The roster's not good enough, and you knew it wasn't good enough at a certain point in the season, and you have to make changes. And if you go into the next year thinking, "Oh, well, maybe if we switch out the coach, that will work." I mean, it's just so counterintuitive. You just talked about continuity. You just talked about building a culture and everything else, and then you're going to walk away from that for no reason.
Well, I know, but they haven't walked away from anything yet. So I mean, I don't want to like paint this grim picture as if they're inept. They're completely inept, and it's part of negotiations. You haven't signed an extension yet. I think you have a lot of offseason to do to get that taken care of. I don't think Mike Brown will step into the 2024-25 season as a lame duck head coach. And I think they'll make it right. But my point is, if he's not your guy, you got to let him go, in my opinion. You don't let him go into a lame duck. You have to make that decision now. And, but again, if you don't have the extension freed up, you can still tell your free agents, hey, we're working on that. We envision Mike being our head coach, X, Y, and Z for however many years it goes into. You're just going to, deal with his contract later. But I also think when it comes to contracts, and yes, you do have players that want to know who the head coach is, you go in first and foremost, they're trying to make their own, set their own path and get their own money taken care of first. So anybody they go after, yeah, that'll factor into the equation, but there are bigger things to factor in, like who's he playing with, what's the playing style, what's the vision of the organization, and what's the money look like, right?
Yeah, I think the vision of the organization is what I'm talking about. Like, it's short at, like, if you're not retaining the head coach after 2 years and going into a lame duck season, that means that you don't really have a vision for what's next. You have
And William,
expectations. Go ahead.
sorry, Jane, William points out here, reward for no playoffs, I don't know. And I get that mindset, but the extension is not a total reward. It's more like best business sense. It's not totally rewarding Mike Brown in a way. It's keeping continuity throughout your organization, that you're willing to see where this goes. Like, you're willing to continue to uh improve upon what you have, and you feel he's the right man to continue to do that. And through for 2 years, I think most people would say he probably is. I certainly understand criticisms of Mike Brown. I don't think he's perfect, and while I agree he's worthy of an extension, it's more so there's still a lot to be accomplished still on the plate there, right? That Mike Brown still has a lot left to do with this team, but it's making the most business sense. You're setting your organization up to appeal to even the next head coach. And if you're a next head coach coming in, you go, wow, if I go from being coach of the year, I'm 2 wins less in the win column, and I can get fired from this organization. Well, what's that say? Or I'm not going to get, options picked up, or even an extension of 2 years, whatever that looks like. That's a message overall, what you're saying. So that to me is bigger than looking at the extension as a reward for Mike Brown, if that makes sense.
I also think this season was more, I mean, people probably won't like to hear it, but more about process than the results. Like, obviously, they go hand in hand, but I think it's about building in the right direction. When they didn't make moves at the deadline, this team was only going to get so far. And I think it's about building the right habits in some of these guys, specifically the core pieces, and getting them to expand their game and what that's going to matter for long term. Like, I think a lot of it, like they obviously go hand in hand, but I think the process has been pretty good for Mike here, even if the result at the end of last season isn't what they were aiming for.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, too, you have to be honest about what happened last season, and I don't think that the dropping 2 games off the win total from the year before, like, there were injuries that took place, and then there was, like, some players just didn't play well, and it didn't matter what you did. Like, Kevin Huerter had a horrible season. He admitted it in the postseason, in his like, exit interview. Like, he had a horrible season, and Harrison Barnes didn't have a good season at all. Like, there wasn't the depth of the roster wasn't there to sustain that and a couple of injuries. It just wasn't. So, at some point, like, look, you're trying to build a winning culture and put something together that lasts, that is sustainable, and you have a head coach that has proven that he can do that in the past. And he's proven that he could do something that no one had done for 16 years, which was make the postseason for the first time, and in more than a decade and a half. So, and it, just so people understand, Mike is making less than $5 million a year this season. He's also making less, considerably less than what they paid Luke Walton. And the salaries in the NBA skyrocketed when Monty Williams got his contract. And so the other question I think people are asking, he has 1 year left on his deal. There was a mutual option for a 4th year that was not that Brown and his group said, yeah, we'll pass on the mutual option, because not you can say yes and they can say no. And so there's no reason to have a mutual option in that situation, especially when salaries for coaches just doubled with Monty Williams' deal, followed by Popovich's deal, followed by Steve Kerr and Eric Spoelstra getting, $15+ million a year. So, like, the dynamics of it have changed. So,
Yeah. Also, like, what's the other side of this? Like, who is the better option that we'd even be talking about? It's not like we're talking letting Mike go and promoting internally with Jordy or something. Like, Jordy's gone and Jordy was Mike's guy in the first place. Like, I just don't, I can't even imagine what the good other option would be here and how this could play out well if they went down that way.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion that, again, we'll probably have multiple times during this offseason, because I don't think we've kind of seen the end. There's just been rumors as of late, whether it's, Amick and Slater saying, $10 to $12 million a year early, or I think Jake Fisher said something about he's looking for an eight-figure deal. Like, look, I don't know. I think years of cert, but years and dollar amounts are going to matter, but also just like a commitment to, like, hey, what are we doing here, and why are we getting in our own way again? That's more my concern. Like, again, Mike proved to me that he's a successful coach when he came in and was 3rd in the Western Conference last year. So, on top of that, we have some randomness. I don't know if you guys have been paying attention. The Indiana Pacers and New York Knicks are playing right now. Just so we're updating people as we go. Uh, the Knicks have got it down to 6 or 7 a couple of times, and Indiana just opened it back up to an 84-70 lead with 5 minutes left in the third. So it's a pretty crazy game 7 that I think was pretty unexpected before the series started, but probably not unexpected at this point with all the injuries the Knicks have had. But we have had some weird things going on. Jarrett Allen was mentioned as, or the Sacramento Kings were mentioned as, a potential landing spot for Jarrett Allen. And then I know that one of the Vegas odds makers have the Kings as favorites to land Jonas Valanciunas. And I think more than anything else, it's just more, it spurs the topic of discussion about what exactly are the Kings looking for a big man to pair with Sabonis? What do you guys think is going on here? Whether either one of these things come to fruition or not, but it kind of feels like the writing's on the wall that maybe the Kings are looking for another big man to pair or to back up Mr. Domantas Sabonis.
I'd be shocked. I feel like last offseason, Clint Capella, the Kings were somehow linked to Clint Capella in some rumors as well. Like, honestly, my first thought with a lot of this is that it wouldn't surprise me if the Kings were kind of getting used a little bit as, leverage by some of these teams. I feel like the Kings are in a very obvious situation where they are going to look to be buyers this offseason. And I think that other teams could use that. We've heard Monty talk about specifically after the trade deadline, how much he wants the offense to get back to where it was last year. That happens with Domas at the 5. It does not happen with Domas at the 4. I remember one game this year, maybe half a quarter, where Alex Len was sharing the floor with Domantas Sabonis, and that's against the Bucks, that are a ginormous team with Jonas at the 4, Brook at the 5. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. I think their entire style of play is built around these DHOs, this free-flowing offense. Now, there are some bigs that can kind of fit into that, and I think there's more and more that are going to exist as the drafts go on here, but I don't think Jonas fits that. I don't think that I'm forgetting the other one that we just mentioned, but I don't think that either one of those guys.
Jarrett Allen. Yeah.
I don't think either one of those guys fit that at all. And also opportunity cost. Like, I don't think that's what you'd go spend your assets on. It doesn't make sense to me. I'm still fully in the train of thought of Domas is a 5.
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I think Domas is a 5, but he's in a kind of a power forward body. He's got kind of short arms and rebounds well, and he's obviously kind of the point forward because everything goes through him. Everything orbits around him, and I talk to a lot of people throughout the league, and I constantly hear how much rim protection is needed, but it's got to be the right rim protection. You can't be, somebody that's not going to be able to stretch the floor. And a lot of those types of players don't really, grow on trees. Like teams love those types of players. You look at, I think I agree that somebody like Aaron Gordon would be amazing next to Domas, but Aaron Gordon's not going anywhere. So finding that type of player is very difficult. And finding that type of player who can also run and have that type of IQ, that's why, things like Keegan Murray and Harrison Barnes, exist the way they do on this team. And some people think that might be a little bit too repetitive going into next season to have those two in the same type of lineup and maybe have a player that does something a little bit different. However that looks, I agree that they need better rim protection. They need another big body, and they need a better big body than what they have outside of Domas. Now, either one of those players, okay. You could even throw Isaiah Hartenstein, who's, in this game right now. I've seen, he's going to be a free agent. There's going to be a lot of people talking about him, but I don't think either one of those three are really the type of player to put around Domas, especially in a starting rotation.
Okay, so I'm going to take a counterpoint here because first and foremost, I don't think we're talking about a starter. But then you come to the question of like, well, okay, how much money are you going to spend to bring in a guy who's going to be a backup to Sabonis, who plays 35, 36 minutes a night? So we're talking about 12 or 13 minutes. I think what you have to do is you have to find a player that can play alongside Domantas, at least for like 3 to 5 minutes, half.
To me, I think it's more of like a starting 4-3 and going from there because, having that. I don't mean to step on your point there, James. Go ahead and finish. But I'm just saying, like, wouldn't you agree that, like, Jarrett Allen, that's a bona fide starter.
Yep.
Valanciunas isn't going to go to many teams where he's not starting, especially with the money that he's probably going to command. So that's a starter. And neither one of them, I think, fits next to Sabonis.
Yeah, but so I would like to see what some of these guys look like fitting next to Sabonis. I'm not fully 100% ready to say that Sabonis can't play with any of these guys. Clearly, the Kings need a couple of things. Like the Kings need a starting small forward or power forward, one of the two, like without any question. But on top of that, they also need a true rim protector that can get on the floor. They also need a tough guy. They need more size. They need, again, we talk about length and athleticism. That's Jarrett Allen in a nutshell. I think he would look great alongside Malik Monk in a pick and roll situation. and like you can create space in different ways. But just to look at Valanciunas, man, the Kings need somebody who will punch somebody in the face. And I know like a lot of Kings fans don't like Jonas Valanciunas because of the Chimezie Metu situation, but there's no questioning that he was impactful in every single one of the 6 wins that the Pelicans had over the Kings this year. Like, he is a huge man, and he's a tough guy, and he's efficient, and he's a good rebounder, and he can block some shots, and he can pass a little bit. Like, there's a lot to it. And on top of that, like, him and Sabonis are very, very close. They play together on the Lithuanian national team. Like, they've played together. They've played, with one of them as a starter, one of them coming off the bench. Like, I think that there's a way that, if Valanciunas at 31, 32 years old wants a full-time starting job playing 30 minutes a night, then Sacramento is not it. But if he's willing to play 18 to 20 minutes a night, and lo and behold, some reason Domantas Sabonis doesn't play 82 games next season, and you have somebody who could back him up and like hold his own for 10 games if he needed it, I think it's okay. You don't want to put all your assets into one guy for sure. But I mean, the Kings need multiple players coming into this offseason. I mean, I could see them looking at the backup point guard spot. I could see they need more length and athleticism at the 3 and the 4. Like, they need like 3 or 4 pieces here. And of those 3 or 4 pieces, like 2 of them have to be rotational pieces that are better than what they had last year, in my opinion. So maybe I'm crazy on that, but
no, I think that you're right. I mean, I think they definitely need improved depth, and backup center is part of that, but I think it should be pretty low on the totem toll when it comes to priority here.
totem toll.
Totem pole. I didn't even notice I said it until you pointed it out. But yeah, I mean, I just don't think they should be spending that much on these guys. I think they'd be a great backup center. Don't get me wrong, but I think that when it comes to the assets you have to go make those improvements that you kind of pointed out, like, I think you should be spending very little on this backup center. Go look at Mason Plumlee, Andre Drummond, Drew Eubanks, like Daniel Tice, I think Sean mentioned last episode. Like, go look at these cheaper options for that backup 5 in my mind.
See, yeah, I've worked my way into convincing Brendan that
I was on board.
Is the answer.
Plumlee
is the answer.
Just wait till we talk about Saddiq Bey.
Oh, do a shot, James. Take it. Saddiq Bey's name has been referenced. You must take a shot.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. Also, like, just there's too many names getting thrown around. It's pretty comical. I will say, yesterday I was out at I was on an assignment at the SAC Card Expo, Card Autograph Expo out there in Roseville, and Malik Monk was kind of the man of the hour, which is funny because Dennis Rodman was right before him, and cool face tattoo and like cool jewels that are around his face now, which are, anyway, it was awesome. But just Malik, every time people coming up to him, like begging him to stay, and just a guy who looked totally comfortable in his own skin, and obviously, being in that moment to be able to interact with fans that way was kind of a lot of fun to see. But every moment people are coming up basically saying, please stay. So Kings have their own stuff to figure out, and what does it look like, who we'll see. But it was just interesting to see that kind of dynamic yesterday.
What was Malik's reaction to those?
To when he'd always smile and he'd be like, definitely facts. Just he had ways to humor them in a way, and I'm not saying he wasn't genuine with it. We all know that Malik wants to remain in Sacramento, but business is business, and as he points out, he's got people to take care of him in that regard. So it's not really his decision, so to speak. I mean, it is, but like it's really up to these other teams and see what they pony up. By the way, Rodman's 63. Isn't that crazy? Can you imagine if Rodman was can you imagine if Dennis Rodman was your father? Like, that was just, I was thinking that to or even your grandfather at that point. Like, that's just wild to me.
This is horrible.
Kings do need a Dennis Rodman. I agree.
It was something I was looking at yesterday. Like, I think there's a group of players that, like, no one is Dennis Rodman. I mean, it's almost impossible to find. But you brought up Aaron Gordon. The Kings need to try to find a player that can play a little bit like Aaron Gordon. and I don't know who that player is. Like I've been kind of combing through rosters, and I think again, like Brandon Clark is like a low budget version of that, but coming off an Achilles injury. I think Jarrett Vanderbilt has some potential to be that guy. I think Tari Eason has some potential to be that guy.
I don't hate Grant Williams.
You hate Grant Williams? Is that what you said?
I don't hate Grant Williams.
Oh, well, that's because you're a Boston guy.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It helps.
Yeah.
Joshua B threw a name out there that I always like every time we talk about this. I'm always a fan of Jeremy Sohan.
I just don't think you're going to be able to get Sohan out of there.
No, I don't either, but I just like him.
You're just going for the Spurs guy with crazy hair. You're like,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's true. I also like looking at the Rockets roster. I mean, Tari Eason might be available. Like, I don't know what you'd have to give up for him, but I mean, he just finished his second season and he had a bunch of injuries and barely played. I think he only played like 22 games. But in the meantime, you got Jabari Smith Jr. who stepped up. You've got Alperen Şengün. You've got Cam Whitmore, who became a player. You have a whole bunch of players who are going to play around his position. And it's getting like, again, Dylan Brooks. Which Thompson brother do they have?
Amen.
Yeah. So they have a bunch of players who are going to play at the forward position. And I don't know how much room there's going to be for him. Someone else brings up Patrick Williams in the chat. Brands brings up Patrick Williams. I like Patrick Williams, but the word on Patrick Williams was that he wanted like $30 million a year. And the Bulls are like, wait, what? Like, you barely played. So I'm a little leery on his injuries. And the same thing with Jonathan Isaac. I know he comes up with everybody. And I mean, that dude's missed more time in his career than he's played without any question. And so also, it's a little difficult.
His best game of the year was against the Kings, far and away. He looked like old Jonathan Isaac, and it wouldn't surprise me if some Kings fans are holding on to that one a little bit more. Somebody mentioned Tobias Harris in here. Do you think there's a world where he's an MLE guy?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if it's in Sacramento, but yeah, I do.
Yeah. I would also bring up too, like I don't want to get too far in the weeds here, but like the King salary cap situation isn't like spectacular. So like if they lose Malik, then sure, you have your MLE. If you don't lose Malik and you're paying Malik like almost $18 million a year, now you're at $172 million or $170 million in luxury. I mean, in tax, not tax, in salary, and the luxury tax is like 171, 172. You're going to have to make some moves in order to free up space to go do something like a mid-level exception, unless you're going to be a tax-paying team, which I'm not sure if the Kings are going to be a tax-paying team yet. I don't know. Tobias Harris might want big money, and he might get big money somewhere. I don't know how, but I would put him at maybe like a 15 to 18 million. I mean, he's worth whatever Harrison Barnes got and maybe a little bit more, I would say. So, but there is a world where there aren't any teams that have salary and he has to take a mid-level exception, especially with all the new like rules regarding like the first apron and the second apron. Like if you're over the second apron, you don't have a mid-level exception and you don't have a biannual exception. And the only thing you can do is sign minimum scale contracts. That's it. That's if and those minimum scale contracts are going to cost you like almost $4 for every dollar you spend in tax. So yeah, the new rules are very, very restrictive. And even with the Kings, with their draft pick this year, that's like, it's over $3 million for the 13th pick in the draft the first year. And that's kind of a problem. So anyway, I think it's something to keep an eye on for sure. Okay, cool. Outside of that, is there any, we kind of talked about this last week about like sort of the players that you guys, well, actually I'll ask this question. Let me switch gears. We'll do the business of basketball.
Forgot about that.
I thought it was the other one.
Oh, no,
we switch it up. I thought you were going to do something one of these days.
I don't do anything.
Sitting on your ass. Yeah, whatever.
I don't do any of this.
Could be
I love
entertaining
it.
every once in a while.
I love this this exchange every time. Every time it makes me laugh.
I was going to point out James mailed in his business of basketball voice.
Yeah, I did kind of.
Usually
the
it's a little-
business of basketball. There we go. Sorry.
All right.
Oh, damn it.
There we
That's
go.
what we were looking for.
Oh no. You got to spend a little time with him, and I just want to get the pulse. Where are we all at with Malik Monk? What do you think the percentage is he's staying, him going? Because I had got to a point where I was like kind of like 35, 65. But the more I hear things, the more I'm thinking it's probably better than that. But I don't know, where are you guys at?
35 would be the percentage
Him
that he
leaving?
stays.
Yeah.
Oh, 35. Wait, hold on. No, hold
35
on.
he leaves, 65 he
Oh.
leaves. 35 he stays, 65 he leaves. Now
There
that's
we
not
go.
my percentage anymore.
Is he drunk? He just said it 3 different ways, didn't
We
he?
got it.
I
We
did.
got there eventually. 35
we
he
got-
stays.
35,
65 he
65.
leaves.
Not drunk.
What is
We
in
got
that
there.
drink, sir? 30. So you're saying 35% he stays?
Yep.
Okay. I think it's probably higher than that. But again, I think the reason being is it's in the hands of other teams, in my opinion. Like, short of somebody coming out and giving him $100 million deal, I think if a team does that, yeah, buy Malik. He's probably going to pack his bags and head off to another city. But is there going to be a team that does that? Is Philly going to do that? Is Orlando going to do that? Detroit, some of these teams that will be under the tax or under the cap and all the like. I think if I like picture a world if Philly does that, I think Malik Monk's gone. Do you?
Brenden?
Well, like 400. Like
Right.
Probably.
How does he
Philly,
say no to that?
Philly, yeah, for sure. And I guess Orlando's probably the same. I don't know. I mean, I think the like 2+1 from Sacramento's side, like how willing would he be to bet on himself again? Like this is his big contract right now. But if he were to be willing to wait 2 years, he could prove that, he's better than a 6-man, for example, or it could become solidified that he's a 6-man. So I'm curious, what his potential mindset could be with that, the willingness to bet on yourself again. And I think that could give Sacramento more flexibility depending on how he sides there. But I mean, I'm kind of with you, Sean. It feels like a coin flip to me based on what these other teams want. If Orlando ends up getting Klay Thompson, that's a team off the table right there that I think ups your chances a lot. So I feel pretty torn between if he's going to stay or not. But I guess, honestly, I'll probably just go 50-50 at this point.
Well, it's also interesting to see what happens on the night of the draft. Like, will you see teams maneuver to try to free up room? Will you see teams try to, like, in some cases, dramatically have to do so? But there's a difference between Detroit being under the cap and a team like Orlando and Philly being under the cap, or OKC being under the cap and things like that. So I think in his case you're going to do what's best for yourself, but the 2-for-1 versus going to a place like Detroit, maybe, okay, well, sure, I kind of like Sacramento's odds in that regard. But if you're going like Philly, who has usually perennial playoff appearances and a big market, and it's a really hard thing to turn down. And maybe OKC, I don't know what that looks like. Obviously, they've got a ton of success this past year. You're playing with a MVP candidate in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They're so young. They have a playing style that's very suitable for what he does. Orlando is a kind of a wild card there. So again, I think he knows what he can take from Sacramento. I think he's comfortable in taking a 2-1 or even a deal with Sacramento, but it all depends on what teams show the money. And I think a lot could change on draft night, but I think Sacramento's got a decent chance. I would give it above a 35% chance, but it not really about anything they can do. It's really about what the other teams do.
Yeah. So while we're talking here, it is like Woj and Shams both have tweeted out that Jalen Brunson has broken his left hand during this game and will not return.
God.
Like, Yeah, this is absolutely wild. The Pacers are up 109-92. The only one keeping them in this game at this point is Dante DiVincenzo, who just continuously hits like crazy 3-point bombs. Yeah, pretty wild. How the injuries have just completely demolished the Knicks, not just in this series, but over the last like 3 months. Just one thing after another.
Don't blame a broken hand on Tom Thibodeau. Come on.
No, this has nothing to do with Tom Thibodeau. No. Yeah, but most of the other stuff, sure. I'm here for it. Let me get to okay. So I used to think it was 35-65 that at 35% he was staying, 65% he was leaving. I'm gonna say now I'm more like closer to 60-40 the other way. 60 he stays,
Jesus.
40 he leaves. And
Okay.
I don't know, just like the tea leaves, the way that things have kind of like there's a positive vibe right now with him staying, and just like people I've talked to, like whether whether he stays or not, I don't know. And if I'm Malik, I'm taking a full 4-year deal at $78 million with an opt out after 2 and a player option after 2, just so I have like the ultimate insurance policy for myself. And then, the Kings at that point can jump his salary up and go crazy, but not really. Because, if they add another big player this season or this offseason, plus you're going to have Keegan Murray coming up, you're going to have more money for Fox. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Sabonis makes a ton of money. Like money's going to get tight. And like Brenden, you brought up Orlando. Orlando can pay both Klay Thompson and Malik Monk, but they would kind of be in the same boat where when all of their young players come up for extensions in the next 2 to 3 years, they would be in a whole lot of money. So yeah, I think it's interesting. I just think that there's a lot of good things, that a lot of positivity with him that I see right now, but I also like it's all tied up into one big giant picture. Like everybody wants stability, everybody wants continuity. Like, so, I think tying up your coach, tying up Malik Monk, going out and getting another big name player that can help you like take the next step. All of these things are huge like things that should be happening this offseason. And I could see all of them not happening. And that's, I think, what scares a lot of Kings fans that are out there.
Yeah. Were you saying that they could give him the 4-year deal, the last 2 could both be player options?
No, you can only have one player option, but he can player option
it's
after
2 and
2
1.
years.
It's still, you sign a 4-year deal,
right.
but you opt out
Gotcha.
after 2 years. Yeah. It'll negate the rest.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah,
Gotcha,
so it would be a 2 and 2. It's like there's a 2-year contract. You have a 4-year contract, but with a player option after 2. And if you opt in, for both the second and the third and the fourth year.
Gotcha. Right, but if you opt out, you're negating the 2 years after. You just signed a new deal. You can do you opt out, do whatever, or they can even extend him.
Yeah. When he goes to opt out, he would have his full Larry Bird rights at that point.
Right.
And then the other, and then Rory brings up something. The Kings can start negotiating the day after the finals. Well, I don't know. Yeah. Hey, Rory.
All, there's not really much of a negotiation.
Yeah, there's not a negotiation.
Here's this, here's that, and it's up to you.
Yeah, and you're not going to get any indication soon because while the Kings can negotiate with him, the rest of the league cannot. And so, again, he knows what the Kings can offer, and the Kings are willing to offer that. So I think that that's one good thing that everyone should know. The Kings they're in on Malik Monk for the 4 years, 78 or the 17.4 million starting salary, whatever. But and I would also point out too that if the Kings were to sign Monk, like the mid-level exception wouldn't just put them over the luxury tax; it'd put them over the apron as well, the first apron, not the second apron. The second apron is 17.5 million over the luxury tax, so it's like 188 or 189.5, and then the first apron is 6.5 million over. So it would be so it's going to be right around like 78 or right around there, 78, 79 million. Just so we all have the numbers that we're talking about. Okay, well, we're gonna cut this short today. We've got a busy Sunday, and I think all of us want to see how this game ends. The Knicks are currently down 20 with 8 minutes left in the game, so this looks very close to over. Do you guys have any predictions for tonight's game, the Game 7 of the Denver-Minnesota game?
Well, Brendan's on mute, so I'll go.
Brendan is on mute.
I already said I thought Denver will do it, but every time I say that Denver wins in this series, they've lost. So maybe this will be the one where I get it right. But I have enjoyed this series very much. It's been good to see Denver get a test like this, especially against a lot of size. And the one thing that I've been entertained by is, I mean, obviously Anthony Edwards, but I've liked the way Denver has navigated Jamal Murray both being a factor and not being a factor. I think that's really shown their depth and really put another feather in the cap of Michael Malone, because I think he's a really tremendous coach for them.
Yeah, I think Jamal Murray,
really tremendous coach in general. But go ahead, Brendan.
Yeah, probably, a good coach to have on your team. I think that Jamal Murray is definitely the X factor here. If I can put a little caveat here, I'll say if Jamal gets 20, that Denver wins. That's okay. What I'll roll with here. I think Ant is going to ball out. I'm curious to see if he ends up doing a little bit too much, like I think some young players can be prone to doing, but I think he's done a really good job of making simple play, which I think has been a big development for him. So those guys are going to get theirs in my mind. I'm curious if Jamal can get going a little bit here.
Okay. Let's hit final thoughts. Brendan, what do you got for final thoughts?
The way that Brunson broke his hand is crazy. It's still very fresh in my mind, but it's just like he swiped down at Tyrese on a break, almost the way that Herter broke his hand, except in this case, Brunson is Desmond Bane, the one swiping down, and kind of hit Tyrese's knee. Freak accident. Yeah, just weird there. I don't really have anything. I've been, enjoying some baseball recently. I've been getting more and more into baseball this season. I'm really trying here, and nothing too special, really. I'm also hyped that the Sharks got the #1 pick, by the way. Celebrini, I'm getting educated here. Let's go. I'm hyped. I'm hyped. About to start watching more hockey.
There's a Warriors tie there. Have you seen that?
There is. Yes.
Yeah.
It's kind of wild.
Is he the Warriors trainer's son, or is he?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. Well, final thoughts. I don't know. Shoot. I feel like I've been doing a lot. There's a lot of high school baseball. Had the Blake Snell thing. Had the autograph thing with Malik and Rodman yesterday, and then this morning I was down in Stockton with Brandon Cooks, the former Lincoln High School star who plays for the Dallas Cowboys receiver there, and he brought out Deron Bland, who's fun because he had the pick 6 record last year. It's his teammate. He's also from Central Catholic in Modesto. So talk about a young man who, I asked him about this today. I was like, is your life changed dramatically from over this past year? He's like, no, I just get recognized a little bit more. So it just kind of gives him a little bit more positivity and kind of momentum to head into camp with. So it was kind of cool to see those two guys, some local guys that Deron kind of looked up to Brandon in a way, and now Brandon's going into his 11th year in the NFL. Who would have thought? And he's like, I got a lot left, so that's going to be fun to watch, even though I'm not the Cowboys had a lot of success last year, but he, as he pointed out, was a first round exit. So
they're good at
not
that,
much
Sean.
Hell yeah, they are.
Yes, they are. They got a lot of drama this offseason. I think they should be on Hard Knocks. I don't know if they've figured that out yet. I know there's the pre-training camp Hard Knocks, right, that they're going to do. I think that's
with
what the New York Giants. Yeah.
Which nobody cares about at all. Who wants to even watch that?
Oh, I'll watch it. You'll watch it. If it was anything like last 2 years, I think the last 2 years were actually pretty decent, but I don't know. It kind of flamed out a little bit for me before that. But Bottle Rocket for me is next weekend. So I don't know when we're going to get our next show in. You guys might have to do this without me, but definitely looking forward to a few days off the grid.
Oh, that's going to be nice.
Yeah.
That's going to be a crazy one. Okay, let's see. My final thoughts. Oh, I do this PSA every year, and it's already we already have had tragedies. Please
Oh,
don't
here
swim
goes
in the
James gonna
rivers.
go
No.
grim on us here.
Yeah, no, please don't swim in the rivers, especially right now. I mean, down in 2 months, maybe you can swim in the rivers a little bit, but the local rivers right now are still flowing so fast with snow runoff, and we had a really, really wet winter, so that means a lot of tree limbs and stuff got blown downstream and are hiding underneath the water that you can't see. So don't go swim in the river. I hate doing this PSA, but I do this PSA because people die every single year, and someone died up here on Mother's Day. A lady who went in to chase her dog. So avoid the rivers at all costs. Outside of that, no, this is my favorite time of year where it's bright and sunny outside, but it's not hot. So everybody get outside, get some walking in, and get some vitamin D in your system. Yeah, all that stuff. So, yeah, definitely. I think that's about it. I don't think I have anything else. We've got too much stuff coming up. The NBA draft isn't that far away. As far as I can tell, they're not going to invite us to draft prospects again. Workouts. So yeah, sorry about that. We would like to tell you when they're having draft prospect workouts and who's coming in and all that stuff. I would still make the claim. I do not believe the Sacramento Kings will select at number 13, but hey, I didn't think they were going to select at number 9 when they took Davion Mitchell either. So who knows? Cool. All right. So if you're hanging out here, make sure you hit the thumbs up for us. Subscribe to the channel. Give us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcast. We'll be back next week, whether Sean's here or not. Thanks for tuning in for the KINGSBEAT podcast. So for Box 40, Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. See you next week.